there. Welcome to Culture by Culture, a multidimensional exploration of Black and Asian pop cultural ties. I'm your US-based host, Delia, and today I'm so excited. I am joined by model, influencer, actor, dancer, and newbie podcaster, Renée Simone. Hi, Renée.
Hi, Delia. Thank you.
No, thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining me. Today, we're going to be talking about just, if y'all don't know Renée, you will by the end of this podcast, but Renée lives in Korea, is a Black model, influencer, actor, dancer, and newbie podcaster living in Korea. So right now, I am so appreciative that you joined me because the time difference, if y'all don't know, well, currently, because we also have, are we in daylight savings time or the opposite? Whichever one. We're 14 hours apart. That's the point.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, it's a big time difference to try and schedule and coordinate. So I really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much.
Oh my God, thank you for having me. Like, oh my God. Even with technical difficulties, I was like, girl, I'm here. I got it. We're going to figure this out.
We figured it out and we're here. I'm very excited. I know Renée from actually two places. Incidentally. So there's this book. We're going to talk about it a little bit. I say book, like anthology, Black in Asia. It's an anthology of stories from Black people who live in Asia, all different parts of Asia, to include Korea. But I also saw you, and I didn't realize at the same time, it came later that I was like, oh, this is the same person on, which YouTube channel was it? Awesome World. I saw you on it. It was a long time ago. Don't ask me which video, but I remember I eventually figured out like, oh my gosh, this is the same girl. So yeah, I'm excited.
I'm so honored.
Oh no. And I'm pretty sure you can still get this on at least Amazon. This anthology. I will link it. It's got a lot of great essays and poems, but your essay is great as well. For starters, so you're an expat living in Korea. Would you say that is a correct way to phrase that?
Yeah, of course. I definitely am still, and at the end of the day, I'm still a foreigner, an expat living in a foreign country. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it has its ups and downs, but it is a country that I chose to live in. So I can't say anything but it's kind of a privilege, in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of dealing with everything the same as other people who aren't in my industry. They're just the fact that we're all expats, so there's that common ground. So when people do ask me like, oh, is it fun, X, Y, and Z, blah, 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 I'm like, yeah, of course. But, just like the other expats, I still have to go to immigration when, it's time for my visa renewal. I still have to make sure my taxes are done, etc. There are some standards that we all have. Yeah.
That sounds challenging.
Right?
How long have you... Well, okay. First, where are you from? I guess we should say that. Originally, where are you an expat from? And how long have you been in Korea?
Yeah. So I'm an expat from New Jersey.
Okay.
East Coast.
I'm in DC, also East Coast Live. Hi.
Hey. Yeah. The weather right now, I heard from my mom that it's super cold there. Like below temperatures, and it's super cold here. So I'm like, okay, at least we're synced somehow. But yeah, from New Jersey, I've been living in Korea for over 4 years, so 4 or 5 years now. Yeah.
Okay, wow, that's a good chunk of time. How did you decide to move to Korea specifically? So I assume you said you're from New Jersey, but you were living in New Jersey, I imagine, and eventually just decided, you know what, I'm gonna pick up and move. How did that go?
Oh man, I don't know. I feel like a lot of other people, it's kind of so happened by sheer will. I don't know. So I was always the kid that loved like watching animations, etc. So that got me into anime, and it was this thing that my brother and I used to watch together. And then when I was in, I believe, early high school days, I started volunteering, and my volunteer partner, she was like, hey, if you like anime, why don't you start watching this Korean drama? And I was like, what's that? Completely random. She threw it at me, and I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about, but I'll give it a shot. And then I started watching these dramas from the early days, and like many others, I fell in love. It was like a rabbit hole that I completely could not get myself out of. And
tales old time.
Oh, yes. And then I listened to Chinese replay. And that was it for me. That was kind of like, oh. And so it began my love for like K culture, K everything. So when I went to university, I was like, okay, I must, find a way to study this language. I wanted to make it my minor. I had so many people telling me that I shouldn't, because at the time I was studying science, and they were like, you need to go with
Oh,
Spanish.
wow.
It is the safest route for you. Don't do something that will lower your GPA, etc. Because they're like prepping me for med school. And I was like, you know what? After listening to them for like a year, I didn't take Korean. And I was like, I cannot do this, Finally, I started taking the classes, and I was like, this is it. When you want to do something, when you like something, it doesn't matter, even if it drops your GPA a little bit. And it didn't, actually, because I loved it so much. I was like so enthusiastic about it. So I took the classes, and then eventually I was like, okay, I'm going to apply for study abroad. And that's how I first came to Korea as an exchange student in 2015 at Ewha Women's University. And from that experience, I was like, okay, I definitely know that my life is abroad. Like, I love traveling. I love being in a different culture. I just love interacting with people. I had such an amazing experience. Of course, a few crazy ones here and there, but that was like,
I'm sure.
That was like it for me. I was like, okay, I have to come back once I graduate and live in this country.
That's amazing. Okay, so for background for everyone, if you've listened to other episodes of my podcast, I've mentioned it a couple times, but like, I'm learning Korean. I've been learning for a while. I'm not as good as I should be for as long as I've been learning. Anyway.
Girl, it's okay. Like, even though I live here, I still feel like, I can be better.
Yeah, no. And that's the thing I've heard, like, because as such, that's partly why I follow you and a lot of other Korean, I don't know, some are influencers, some are actors, things like that. Because, it's good to like interface with the language any way you can. So that's one of the ways that I do it. I've seen various experiences. There are some people who move to Korea, expats, who they move without like really much grasp for the language at all. Some people stay within like their international community within Korea. But then there are some who are like, no, I learned the language, moved out there. So by the time you moved, you had at least, I guess, a elementary grasp of Korean?
Yeah, definitely. I had an elementary grasp. Like, I started studying the basics, like ABCs, basically Hangul, from America, and then like various programs and classes here and there. Even now, like when I have time, I try and like take some listening classes or things like that, because it really does change how you interact with locals, and then even making friends here. And I'm one of those people who's kind of in the middle. Like, for work and everything, I do have to speak Korean, but a lot of my closest friends are other expats, not necessarily Americans, but other expats. So a lot of the times I'm speaking English. So I have to be cognizant of the fact that I need to improve my listening and speaking and kind of get out of my comfort zone. It's something I'm still working on, but just so everyone knows, you don't have to be really hard on yourself. Like, everyone goes through it, even if you do live here. So give yourself some leeway and just get into it gradually.
And it does seem from what I've seen following, Korean natives, but also people who've moved to Korea from different places, that they seem more or less patient. So that's helpful, I think.
Yeah.
Like the locals and stuff.
Yeah. I would say it really depends. Like, I live in Seoul, and so it's more of a fast-paced city, and people here, even if they can't speak that much English to you, or they might understand a lot, but speaking maybe not, they'll try and speak English to you if they think that that is the fastest way to communicate.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
They're like, you know what?
They're like, whatever gets us here quickest.
Yeah. Like, I don't know what you're trying to say, but let me speak English. Or they just want to like practice their English, so they'll like be like, oh, perfect opportunity. You're a foreigner. You definitely speak English, right? Outside of Seoul, I would say people are a bit more on the side of like, hey, if you're here and you speak Korean, like, even if you don't understand me 100%, I'm going to speak only Korean to you. And so if a lot of people will say this, like those who have lived outside of the city, that their Korean immensely, like exponentially improved, because they were in like a rural area or like a suburban area where most people just like didn't want to speak or didn't know how to speak English. And that's okay. So I would say that, yeah. People are nicer here, and depending where you are, especially the elderly, they love seeing you speak Korean. Even if you just say 안녕하세요, they're like, oh my God, 어머. Your Korean is perfect. And you're like, girl, all I said was hi.
You're so fluent.
Like, all I said was hi. So yeah, confidence.
It's like a little ego boost for your day. Yeah. When you moved to Korea, what expectations did you have when you first moved there, and how has that compared with your experience over the last 4 years and some change?
So I definitely thought I was going to be living my K-drama dreams. Gonna cross the street and meet my oppa,
Oppa.
Kidding, guys, it's oppa, but don't.
Yeah,
don't.
We're joking.
Please don't come here and just start calling everyone oppa. Don't do it. Don't do it, girl.
Don't do it.
It definitely didn't happen like that. Although I did meet some charming people, but yeah, it's just a country like every other country. Definitely try to interact with the locals, try to understand the culture. Even if you don't know the language, just like learn here and there and be respectful, of course. And dramas are not 100% real, guys. So please, please be careful. Be safe. That's all I'm going to say.
Do your research and be safe.
Especially at clubs.
Yep. Yes.
Yeah.
That's all we'll say.
That's all I'll say. But no, it's on the other side of that, I've actually met a lot of diverse people here, even within the expat community. And that's something I didn't expect. I think that's what drew me back to coming back here and living here. When I was in the States, I feel like it's very easy to be stuck in your own bubble and only meet a certain amount of people or only see the certain amount of faces every day, or every year. It's very easy to stay like that and maybe meet only one or two new people that you connect with. I felt like I wasn't really expanding, or maybe I just wasn't trying or going to the right places. But while living here, it's definitely easier to meet so many different people who think so outside of the box, I guess in their own rights, they're also very traveled, and interacting with them I saw a growth in me that I really wanted to continue. And that's why I'm still here. Yeah.
How did your family feel when you first decided? I know you did an exchange program, but when you were like, no, actually, I think I want to try moving out there. How did they feel? Like, were there any concerns they had?
Oh, yeah. They were like, are you sure?
Oh.
They're like,
you sure about that?
Yeah. After a year, you want to come back? Of course, my mom was like, I'm going to miss you. And I don't think you should go. But, it's your life. I can't, hold you back. It's really one of those things where even when I said I wanted to study abroad, I did it twice. I came to Korea and then I went to China. And that to me was kind of a promise that I had to withhold for myself or keep to myself. And I did it. And I think by me doing that, my mom saw how serious I was about living abroad or just being abroad, traveling. And so once I was like, yeah, I really want to go back and live there, it was kind of a no-brainer. She was like, you know what, I can't stop you. When you were a student, you said you would do X, Y, and Z, and you did it. And I did it kind of by myself because I had to apply for scholarships, etc. So it was one of those things where she was really sad, still is, she's like, I miss you, I want to see you. It's been 3 years now since I've been back, but
wow.
Yeah, it's been a while. But yeah, she understands that what I'm doing here is something that I worked hard on. I'm still working hard on. So lots of love. Yeah.
I know people always assume that when you move, you're going to want to come back. But do you ever, Korea is a very different culture. Do you ever miss parts of being in the States? Do you ever get homesick? Things like that?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Even now, especially Christmas time, actually,
oh yeah,
I wouldn't even say that. If I was in the States, I'd be thinking Thanksgiving, right? But here, there's no Thanksgiving. Only you celebrate with other expats, right? So immediately my mind went to Christmas because that's all I see decoration wise here. Especially holiday season, you miss the festivities of home. You miss being around family and friends. Korea doesn't really celebrate Thanksgiving, right? Why would they? It's a national holiday. And even Christmas, it's a couple's holiday. So
Yep. That's what I have heard. It's more for friends, maybe, definitely couples. Chuseok is where they spend time with their families, right?
So that's their Thanksgiving that already passed. So I miss that. I miss also being able to walk outside and see diversity. I know people are like, girl, you're in Korea. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And I can see it if I go to Hongdae or Itaewon or something. But I feel like you definitely don't get over the sense of otherness, no matter how well you speak Korean or, how well you try to, I guess, what's the word? Adapt. There's another word, but I can't think of it right now.
Assimilate?
Yes, there you go. English escapes you. Yeah. You always know in the back of your mind that there is that difference. So I do miss that. Yeah.
Is that what drew you to, again, I spoke about it at the top of the podcast, but there's this great anthology. I can't recommend it enough. I recommend it all the time, but I just really want people to read it because when I found it was exactly like the stories I've been searching for. But the Black in Asia anthology by Spill Stories is, again, an anthology of just Black people living in all different parts of Asia.
Right.
Is that experience partly what drew you to participate in that project? Or if not, what was it?
Yes and no. Like that project, I was recommended to do it by a friend. So the people who ended up producing the book, I met them at a workshop, and then we ended up becoming friends. And later on, they were like, "Hey, we want to produce this book, and we're gathering stories. Please submit." And I was like, "You know what? Okay." At that time, I really wasn't comfortable with speaking in my own voice, I guess, written wise.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I spoke about so many things for essays and competitions, but me trying to be honest and real about something that I've experienced was definitely new for me, and I'm so glad that they pushed me to do it. And the fact that they were creating this platform for other people to also experience it with us, that was the most beautiful thing. And so I 100% said, you know what, I'm scared, but I'll do it anyways. I'll jump. And I'm so glad. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a beautiful anthology. And I reread your essay before this podcast. And yeah, no, it's really well done. I didn't know you didn't think of yourself as a I didn't know you didn't think of yourself as a writer. It's really well written. It's a very the stories in the anthology, they span all the experiences. That's the other thing that I appreciate about it. I guess I should say, like, I think a lot of people, especially in the West, especially in America, have a certain lens of viewing the world. And I won't say that that's right or wrong, but they expect certain stories from Black people who move to Asia specifically. And I like that this anthology, because based on what I had heard, like trying to follow people who are expats who were Black, there's a variety of experiences, and I really like the anthology highlight that. If there were Black people who wanted to say, like, it's been really racist and it's really hard and I want to go home, they let them say that. But also there were a lot of people who were like, it's been a beautiful experience, I feel super safe here. So if you're looking for a diversity of experiences, I again can't recommend it enough. And yes. It seems like y'all were really supported in y'all stories.
Yeah, 감사합니다. Thank you. Yeah, like honestly, like I've had an array of experiences here, including the racist ones. And sometimes I wouldn't even say racist because sometimes it's just ignorance. But as you can see from this new cut, I did cut my hair because
it's very cute.
Thank you. I also I wanted some freedom, and I also wanted to just like shave it off because I was tired of like doing my hair every morning. But there's also the added piece of people would actually touch my hair, like when it was out in a fro, like, you know.
I've heard that a lot from people who even just visit, like they're not even there for a long time. Yeah. In the short amount of time, they'll have, a lot of times they say like ajumas or, you know, older people often will.
Well, they just feel like it's great. You know, I was on the bus, and at the time I had my hair in like little cute, I don't know what you call these, puffs. Let's put it that way.
Oh yeah.
And I just felt a yank from behind me, and I was sitting on the bus, right? And
not a yank.
Yeah, I felt a yank. I was like, who's touching me? I look back, and it's like 3 elderly ladies, you know, like, oh, we touched it because, you know, in Korean, we touched it because it's so cute, it's so pretty. And I was just like, eh? You know, they're elderly, so you can't really say anything. Right. I know I'm in this country. I'm not about to be deported for talking back. Like, you know, before someone says like, no, she was yelling. Like, no, I wasn't. You know, like, I'm not about it. So I just like stood my ground. I sat in the seat, but I kind of like hunched over to obviously show that I was, you know, uncomfortable. And then they got it. They were like, oh, I guess we did something wrong. Next stop, I got off, and they were like, you know, because sometimes you saying something, they don't get it. You have to like physically show that you have experienced something that you didn't like. And that for some reason is what does it. A lot of people won't get it because for them, as elderly in this culture, they treat other Koreans even as their own, you know. If they want to say something, they feel like they can. And it's like, I'm older, so you should listen to me, you know? So there's that aspect. It's not necessarily a bad thing all the time, but just be aware that, yeah, in America, people have no business touching you, but in Korea, it might not be the case.
Right. The cultural context is completely different.
Yes.
Which does not mean, like, speak up for yourself if you, like, racism exists. So, like, if you are actually, but, like, you know what I mean? Like, understand the context so you can navigate those situations a bit more fluidly. I think what you said is very interesting about, like, having to show it. Were you conscious of that when you were doing it in that moment, when you were, like, hunched over, like, no, I need to show them? Or did you learn from that moment that, oh, I need to show them?
Oh, that experience wasn't my first time. So I guess in my head, I was like, yeah, just show them. Don't say anything. Because, like, even if you said, like, don't touch me, blah, blah, like, immediately, right? When I turned around, they immediately said, oh, it's because your hair is pretty. You know, it's pretty. They already gave me an excuse. So I knew that saying something wouldn't, you know, they'd be like, well, we have a good reason. Like, we just loved it. Like, you know, like for them, me liking your hair means I can touch it, you know? So showing like a visceral reaction was probably the best thing I would say. But definitely, guys, like if you know, are in that situation, you can say it in English. They might not understand. But, you know, in Korean, like, oh, you know, 만지지 마세요. Like, you know, 내 몸 손대지 마세요. 손대지 마세요. Like, don't touch me, you know, like
but politely. You said it politely.
Very politely. Like, you know, try to be polite. Learn, like, the don't touch me the polite way. And if not, then they know you're a foreigner. Just say it, you know, like at that point, you know? But I would say a lot of people don't do it with any ill intent. It's just they're curious. They haven't experienced it before. And so they try. Not saying that it's right, but just understand that that's probably something that you might come across. Yeah.
That's something I personally have been curious about because I've heard these stories many times. You know, if you do your research, you hear similar stories across experiences. But a lot of people, that is what they say in their experience. Like the person who touched their hair will say, oh, but it's so pretty. Do you think from your interactions, like, are they being sincere? Do you think that, like, broadly Koreans are looking at it like, wow, that's so pretty? Or is that just what they're saying so that you don't get mad?
Ooh, that's a good question. I want to say it really is because it's exotic to them. Like they have no idea because they have. So for Black people, when we say perm, we're talking about a straight perm. For Koreans, when they say perm, they're talking about getting their hair curly. So I've had kids even, you know, and this is how I know it must be a thing because even kids will come up to me and be like, hey, is your hair real? I'm like, yeah.
Yes.
like, yeah, it is. Yeah, you can touch it, you know? And then when you say like you can touch it, they're like, oh my God, there's a girl at your head like that? And I'm like, yeah. you know? So it really is out of curiosity. They have no idea because for them, they only see majority, you know, their parents, their family, maybe someone along with the family has curly hair, but it's not as curly as ours, right? So for them, I definitely think it's just them not knowing. Even if they see something on the screen or on TV or in music videos, they think it's fake, you know? So
right.
Unfortunately, fortunately, depending on what type of personality you have, I think a lot of the times when you are different, you kind of feel like you are doing some type of cultural exchange no matter where you go or who you're talking to because you are different, you know? So I think it's good to have that open mindset when you travel. Yeah. Or live here.
Yeah, no. Yeah, for sure. Follow-up question for me personally. I've always wanted to know, how do Black expats particularly care for their hair? Like, are there products? Like, what are y'all doing? I want the secrets. Can you please let me in? I just want to know so badly.
Oh my God. This is also another reason why I cut my hair. But there are lots of people who don't cut their hair, so don't fret, guys. Guys and girls, ma'ams. But you can order on iHerb now, iHerb.com. So they have so many more products. Before, when I first got here, there weren't many. Now there's an array of products that you can order online, bless, and it comes relatively quickly within like a week or so. There's places like Itaewon, so they have like one or two shops, two or three shops they can go to for African hair braiding, etc. Not like where you get like your hair washed and pressed. We don't have that yet, but at least we have African hair braiding, and some of these shops have actually products way more expensive than in America or etc. Right, but they're here, and then Pyeongtaek, which has the base, the U.S. Army base,
right?
That whole community there as well, right? Because they're full of Americans and other people, very diverse, and you will find shops or places that have these products. A bit out of the ways if you live up north, but it's it's an option. So we have a few things. We have a few.
I've always just been curious because, like, especially as I followed more. Like influencers types, like I followed, you know, people who aren't influencers, of course, but like, y'all be looking cute, and I'm like, how? I as a Black person who knows the like ins and outs of hair care, I'm just wanting to know how. Like, there's another. She's actually Korean. Jenny Park, I think she's half Black, half Korean, but her hair is always so cute. And I'm like, where is she? What's the story?
For her, I have no idea, but I guess her parents were on it, you know, like, and the fact that, because I'm like, girl, her hair is always so cute, like in the puffs. Yeah.
I was just always wondering, like, is there like home remedies they've like figured out, like, oh, this can work for that? You know, people are resourceful. I don't know. But okay, so there's like shops. Things are growing.
Yeah, things are growing. And yeah, there are some Korean products that, because she has mixed hair, right? So that might like be as strong enough to like lay down her curls as well. But we do have like, you can order online and there are some shops. Yeah. So it's not super, super inaccessible, but there are some things like we get back home that you can't really find here. Yeah.
But it sounds like if that's one of your holdups, you're like, I don't know if I want to try living in Korea for a little bit. There's hope.
There's hope. Or, you know, bring your own stuff from home and bring a nice, you know, amount of it.
Right. Just like make that one of like, you got a plan, like stock up.
Yeah, that's what I did when I first got here. I like brought lots of products from home. And then like whenever people went to America or came to visit, you know, they'd give me stuff from home.
Oh, true. Yeah. You're like, I'm sending you with a shopping list because when you come back here.
Because there are just some things like new products from the States that like are not accessible here. So like the new products I want to try too, you know? Yeah.
What about like cosmetics? Like I'm thinking like foundation and stuff. Because I remember, I think it's still kind of a trend, but it was very trendy for a little while here in America, like Korean skincare. But, you know, a lot of like, not even just Black people who had like brown skin and deeper were like, that's not accessible. But I'm like, well, I definitely see people with makeup on in Korea who have brown skin. So like, is it again a situation of like, you just know where to go, or have they like expanded their ranges?
Oh man. I think there are very few that I know of Korean brands that have now expanded to darker shades. So, but that wasn't the case like when I first got here. When I first got here, I still had to carry my own foundation that I brought from like home to shoots, you know. They'd be like, oh, hey, by the way, do you have your foundation with you? And I'm like,
sure do.
Yeah.
I guess.
But that's not, you know what I mean? Like, you're the makeup artist, you should have that. Now it's a bit better. They'll order online. They'll order from like, you know, like brands like MAC, Dior, etc., and have their darker shades because they know, you know, at least most of them do. The ones who don't, it's like, okay, well, you're not prepared to be a makeup artist. But I digress. But you can, The Ordinary is here, and The Ordinary has, for good light coverage, The Ordinary has, Benefit also has darker shade, but you have to, I know the one in Shincheon, which is like Hongdae area, which has more foreigners, right? More tourists. They will have darker shades. Like the other department stores might not have your shade. Sorry, boo-boo, but it is what it is. There's The Ordinary. There's Fenty now in Sephora.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So if you want, you can go get Fenty. There is the option of ordering online. They have more variety now. But yeah, back in the day it was really hard to find, but now there are more options. It's not as prevalent as we would have, you know, in the States, but a bit better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for clearing up my personal curiosity. Because I'm like, oh, looking real cute, but what's the tea? I want the tea. Like, that's what I'm always looking for. I'm like, I want to know what y'all are like. I like that minutia of like seeing expat life.
Yeah, like seriously, it does feel like you are looking for a needle in the haystack. Even some, you know, shops, like I went for a personal color recently, and it was for work. So I was being filmed, and they literally couldn't do the foundation part because they're like, sorry, we don't have your shade. And I was like, you knew that we were coming. You knew that 2 foreigners were coming, but you didn't have our shades, you know, like.
It was a fingers crossed situation. Like, who knows what kind of foreigner?
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, what is going on? And they're like, you know, one of them said, she was like, yeah, it's so hard to find your shade here. I'm like, it's not the easiest, yes, but now, especially in 2023, there are more brands that have it. You could have gone to Sephora, you could have gone blah, blah, blah. Like, there's not an excuse anymore, right? Even if you had a shade that didn't exactly match me, you could have gotten a darker shade. So now when I hear these things, it's more like, okay, you just didn't search. Yeah.
Because like people who are established in the industry are now able to find it. So that means like the information is there if you choose to look. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. For people at home, what are some common misconceptions that you think people have about either living in Korea an expat or Korea in general that you would like to demystify, clear up for people?
Oh, that's a I don't know actually. What? um, I don't know. Okay, so my uncle randomly came, an uncle of mine came to visit randomly, and he only had like less than 24 hours to be in the country. And from his experience, he was very shocked that like things were kind of, I guess there are also skyscrapers here, at least in Seoul. He was very shocked about that. There are mostly apartments here. We don't really have people built up. America, we have one, so we build across. Everything here is like up, you'll have like one building and like one floor is like a doctor's office or like a yaku, which is a pharmacy. The second floor is a doctor's office. The third floor is like a Pilates studio. Like it's random, it's really random. Some parts of Seoul kind of reminded him of the States, looked like New York City. Other parts, definitely look like a different country. Like it's very diverse. I don't know. Public transportation's really convenient here. We take buses and subways everywhere. Pretty common. It's pretty affordable. It's not like New York City as well. I don't know. Just throw them at me. I have no idea. When you're like been in it for so long, you're like, what is?
That's true. You've been there over 4. I said here, like I'm in Korea. I'm not. That'd be nice. I'd love to. But no, you've been there for over 4 years. So that totally makes sense. Well, I know, like for instance, a lot of people. Well, you kind of addressed one, like think it's going to be like the K-dramas, which it's not.
No.
Korean people are just regular people.
Just regular people. Yeah, definitely. Like, and I think sometimes they might be scared to talk to foreigners, actually. So there's that.
Some people like might appear shyer than they are because they're like, foreigner.
Yes, I've had people like literally I've gone to coffee shops and they'd literally look at each other and be like, oh my God, what do we do? I'm like, it's okay. Your life is not ending. I promise. Like, will be fine. Yeah. People are still kind of scared. So attempt with caution. Yeah.
Within the expat community, like, do people, I'm trying to put this tactfully. I'm sure there are still, regardless, people who go to Korea thinking they're going to get their K-drama dream, but like truly believe it. They're like, I'm going to find my K-drama male lead and I'm about to, or female lead, who knows? Yeah. Do these people like last, or do they like give up after a while? Ooh. Whether that means leaving or realizing, oh, I was so wrong. Like, or are there just people like, is that a type of person that like is known in the expat community? Like, if that makes sense.
Ooh, these stereotypes. Oh my. I guess like, romanticize your life, boo-boo. Like do what you got to do to make you feel like you're living like you are the main character. But at the same time, I feel like from what I've experienced or I've seen from other people or heard from other people, a lot of them within their first few months or their first year kind of wake up real quick because they realize that,
okay.
Yeah. So like whatever you thought would happen, if it doesn't happen that way, you kind of realize, okay, Korea is just another country. There are some things that are hard about living here and there are some things that are easier. And a lot of people might have different experiences, especially if you're a male or female, right? So there's that aspect as well. And don't really want to talk too much about it, but from what I've heard from other people as well, there is lookism.
Oh, yes. Yeah, sure.
So whether male or female, if you look a certain type of way, or play into the beauty standard that is very much so rampant in Korea, then you do get a certain type of treatment. So.
I was just curious because I watched the show, or it was on Netflix, XO Kitty. It was the like spin-off of like,
yeah, To All the Boys That Ever Loved.
Yes. It was a very cute show, but there was a character on there, I don't remember her name at this point. She was a side character, but like it was very much that like, oh, she came thinking that like she's gonna like meet K-pop idols, and it was like poking fun at it, I think. Yes. Like that concept. And so I was like, is that really a thing people are doing? Like, does it happen? Like people come fresh and they're like, I'm gonna
I'm gonna go find on the street. I'm like, no, you're not.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, even if you do, like, please be mindful and be careful. Like, they're people too. Like, don't film them. Don't follow them.
Absolutely. We do not support sassing behavior over here on this podcast. Absolutely not. Don't do it, girl. Don't get caught up, please. I think another thing, I don't know about that this is a misconception, but we could talk about it a little bit, is specifically more for Black Americans. They worry a lot about racism when traveling abroad. Even like friends who I've known who lived in abroad for a while or traveled, they always went with this worry. Like, I think it's pretty common, and I wouldn't say it's unfounded. Like, worldwide, like there are some places it's scary to travel, like as a Black person. And so I guess my question is, were these concerns you had at all, and how have you navigated those cultural differences? I know you've talked a little bit about it, but if you had any other things to say about it.
Yeah, I can completely understand. It is valid, you know. It's always better to be on the safer side, to be cautious. I would still say, though, for me personally, I feel so much safer here than I would.
That's what I've heard a lot. Yeah.
Than I would in the States. Like, I'm not worrying about any gun violence. And yes, gun violence isn't like super, like, I haven't seen a gun while living in New Jersey, right? But, you know, it's still a possibility. Whereas here, people have knives, you know, like people just take their knives. And if you can kind of see it from miles away, it's like, he has a knife, call the cops, you know, like, you know. I don't really worry about that. I walk, you know, pretty late at night. I don't have to watch my back. Still always, you know, be careful of your surroundings, guys. But like I'm saying, like I don't feel the need to. I'm not paranoid, you know? And so that's been a savings grace for me. And I think one of the reasons why I've lived here for so long is I don't have that in the back of my mind at all. I leave my stuff out. Like, people leave their stuff out to go to the bathroom.
I've seen like TikToks about this.
It's real. Like, I got so used to it that when my uncle came and like, you know, he said like, hey, you go to the bathroom first, I'll watch our stuff. I was like, oh, you don't you don't have to worry about that. Like, just go to the bathroom. Let's go. Like, it'll be here when we get here. I promise, you know. Of course, there are some incidences where people will take stuff from you if they think that you're a tourist. You know, there are some tourist scams. Many of them, actually. I recently heard about the Airbnb scams. Crazy. Be careful.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. So because you're a foreigner and, you know, you don't really have that much weight in the system. And then on top of that, the people who are doing this scamming, they only get a slap on the wrist. I've heard really a lot of stories about Airbnbs being illegal listings and people coming here and having their money taken from them, right? Because they paid already and having no home or no place to stay, or being told like, hey, actually this place is not up for, you know, rent. It's actually it's on the market for what is it? English. It's on the market for, you know, being sold, you know, like, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Ooh, real estate market. There we go. So do be careful about that, guys. But in terms of like, just because you are Black, I've only had maybe one or two crazy people, you know, be like, you know, spit in front of me or something. It's very, very random and not that common. Yeah.
Which, not to say that that's not, like, that's obviously not fun and that would ruin someone's day. Yeah. And I could ruin people's experience too if they experience that enough. Like, for sure, I've heard of Black people who are like, I can't do it anymore. But like, when you compare the violence that potentially we face here in America all the time, like, I totally understand. Yeah.
I've definitely had people look at me up and down, you know, be like, where are you from? You know, X, Y, and Z. If they don't hear me speak, it's more like, yeah, you know. It's really weird in that sense. But again, I cannot control the way people see me, but I can, you know, just control how I react to the situation. There have been some cases, you know, a lot of people talk about this a lot. I see this all over TikTok where you will go to some clubs or some, you know, fancy areas and they might refuse you because...
Oh, yes. That was even a plotline in Itaewon class.
Because it's true.
Yeah.
Because it's true. It's kind of crazy. But if you look a certain way, and I will say this again, like, it is true, guys, lookism. Like, if you look a certain way, no matter whether you're Black, white, Hispanic, they'll be like, oh, okay. Oh, all right.
Okay, interesting. That's fascinating. That is fascinating.
Yeah.
So, like, if you theoretically, I'm not saying I support or condone, but like theoretically, it doesn't even matter if you are Black. If you can learn the rules of lookism and can like mold yourself into that, like, you're gonna get by a lot better. Or not to say you get bad if you don't. I'm not saying that, but you know, like, even these rules, you may be an exception.
Yeah, right. Which I think it's not a good thing at all, because even Koreans face it, right? Like, if they don't look a certain way, yeah, especially amongst themselves, right? They judge a lot. So
it's some of my favorite content is Korean, like, creators, influencers, people speaking on it, like, in their experiences, good and bad. Like, it's very fascinating to me because we don't like we have beauty standards here, but like it's not the same.
It's not the same.
Not the same.
Yeah, yeah. Like, you know, like anyone who dressed up enough to go to a club, okay, cool. Like you can enter, you know, in the States, it's like, all right, we see that you dressed up, it's good. But like here, it's like, if the bouncer doesn't like your face, well.
Wow. Was that an adjustment for you?
Yeah, it was. Like, I haven't had someone like physically like do that to me. You know, maybe when I was in my costume for Halloween, they were like, who the hell? You know, I was just they were like, ew, you know, like,
yeah.
But I've gone with groups of people and, you know, we're all set to go. And then unfortunately, you know, he was my Black friend, you know, Black guy. And they were like, oh, sorry, no. And I was like, oh, okay, well, we're not going in. You know, obviously, like.
Good friends.
Yeah. Like, well, like, what do you mean, you know? So I understand it sucks and it's not something I condone. Just to be aware and go somewhere else that will accept you and, you know, take your good vibes. So, yeah.
Because I think that's also worth highlighting that for, I mean, I don't know statistically, literally, but like for every place that is like that, there are other places that aren't going to treat you that way. So
exactly. Yeah.
Seek those places out. And I think from what I hear, like the younger generation, things are changing slowly but surely as far as that's concerned.
Yes.
Like they don't tolerate it nearly as much.
With the dough, which I love. So these days I've been meeting a lot of youngsters, you know. I say it as if, because I'm still in my 20s, guys, but I'm on the, anyways.
No, I understand.
Been meeting lots of youngsters and they're so open. I'm so happy. You know, I'm like, we're going in the right direction. I love it.
I love to see it. Yeah, no, that's great. Something else I've noticed about, so I kind of talked about how I'm learning Korean. And so part of that is I follow like a lot of people from different backgrounds, like that live in Korea, sometimes Korean natives. I think I already said that. Black people who moved to Korea, other expats. But something I notice is that the Korean expat community of Black people seems so tight because anytime I'm like, oh, look, there's this, it could be just somebody random. I did not find them from the same place. Like, oh, a TikToker, like who teaches English, who's Black. I'm like, oh, let me go follow them on Instagram. And then you know how Instagram lists, it's like also followed by. And so it feels like, I don't know if this is true. You can confirm or deny, I suppose, that there's a pretty strong community of like Black expats. And so I was wondering if that community felt necessary when you first moved to Korea. Did it exist? And like, what that has been like?
So such a good question, and I feel like unfortunately I'm not equipped to answer it, but
okay, that's fine.
Yeah, I will say like I do follow like the Black community on Facebook, like that group, and I've seen like things here and there. We're kind of spread all over, you know. Some people, a lot of people are teachers, some people are in the army, some people do live here, some are students, right? I mean, there's always this influx, so I feel like there's not like one unified like huge Black community. I think there's more so like depending on your location, like where you are, like do you live in Itaewon, you know, like are you part of like that community, the HBC, like Gyeongchon community, which is like like it's near Itaewon, right? Like are you part of like the teachers community, right? Like it also varies on your job as well.
Okay.
And I think it was very, very necessary to be a part of the foreigner community, the expat community when I got here. So mingling with a lot of people, especially talking with a lot of people that are in my field, because, you know, it's always good to hear from other people's experiences and know what to avoid, know what to do. But in terms of like just the Black community, I can't speak too much about that, but we do have a good bunch of people and of pockets of communities here and there. Yeah, I will say that.
Yeah, no, it's very neat. Like I said, it's like without fail, I'm like, I bet when I go look at their Instagram, like I can almost guess. And then I'm like, sure enough, like it's always a list of people, which I think is really lovely.
I feel like that also in itself is we all don't know each other, but a lot of us do, depending on where we are.
It could also just be one of those like, I support you, I see you, I don't know you, but I see you. I see Good luck out there.
It definitely is one of that. I've definitely like liked people, followed people because of that. I'm like, hey, I just saw you on this, you know, podcast, or I just saw you doing this thing. Like, you're awesome. Let's connect. Just Instagram friends, but hopefully we meet, you know, in real life. But depending on where they are,
yeah, no, that's super cool. And I think getting plugged into those communities can be vital for people who are thinking. I mean, I don't know if there might be people listening to this who have thought about moving. I don't know if there's other communities like this in other parts of Asia. I would love to interview expats in different parts of Asia. Like that's the plan. I just, for my Korean language learning purposes, I've noticed it mostly in Korea, but like I assume like they exist elsewhere. And I think it's like important to get plugged into those communities, because I feel like a lot of times stories that I've heard, obviously you can't speak to this, but when I'm trying to follow like expats and stuff, the people who have hard times, it's like they couldn't find their community, whether that is other Black people or just in general, like they weren't able to plug in. Because yeah, you miss a lot of stuff, like you were saying, like you don't have your family around Christmas, for example, or like I don't know what expats do during Chuseok when everybody's with their families. Like, do y'all get together for that, or
actually,
is it like everybody's gone?
Years ago, like Chuseok was definitely a big thing for Korea, meaning like Seoul was kind of like dead, like quiet. Even the youngsters went back home. Nowadays, Chuseok is becoming like you go home for maybe a day or two. But people are going on dates, people are hanging out with their friends, partying, having a blast. So it's not the same as it used to be. So you still can, find your expat community and like hang out with them, or you can still do your everyday regular things because places might be open just depending on which days. So it's not as bad as it was before in terms of like loneliness, because Korean businesses are benefiting from us being like around, and youngsters also not going home for the holidays, whether due to work or just like it takes time to go back and forth. So things are open, but I think being open to having a community that might not always look like you is my best recommendation for someone coming to live here, because sometimes people that look like you might not be that close, it like distance wise.
They live all over.
Yeah, all over, or you just might not vibe with the people that are near you. You might vibe with someone else from a different country. So there's that piece as well.
And I wonder, like, is it hard also? I mean, I know you're like a model, actor, and all of that, but like for other people, or even when you first came, like, I wonder if it's also hard to like, if you're like, I'm thinking like, for example, if you're like a teacher, like that has a schedule to it. It also trying to be purposeful of getting outside the schedule to find other people to like connect with. Cause like, it may not be the other teachers in your area, like getting creative about making those connections, I assume must be really vital.
Yes, I would say so. I did teach for a little bit as well. And having that set schedule did make it difficult to meet other people. And I didn't want to travel too far as well because I had work the next morning or the next day.
Right.
So weekends became really vital. And a lot of people do live for the weekends, right? So you only have that weekend time to really party and meet people. So it can be a bit tiring. So these online communities, which is why I said that, these online communities where you might be connecting with other Black people who are farther from you are super important. Just that you might not meet them, right? So you end up meeting people who are outside of that. But all in the same, going to hobby groups or even going to Korean classes, right? They have like some community class that you can take.
So true. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And that's how you can meet more people, or going to some networking parties or just in general parties.
You're like, your Korean's rusty too? Me too. Let's be friends.
Always, girl. Let's go. Or just making like Korean local friends, if you're, so lucky to find someone who's like really open and who wants to, be with you, teach you Korean, and you teach them English, or vice versa, or just like be friends in general. You guys can Konglish the whole day. It's okay.
Yeah, no, I think that's kind of the dream for Korean language learners. Like, I just want to find a Korean person to talk to, be with friends. Like, that's why people learn languages. This is we talked about it on a different podcast episode, but it's to like make connections, right? Like, that's partly why you learn languages.
Yeah.
Speaking of your jobs, you're now a model in South Korea, and I see you doing cool stuff all the time. Go follow her on Instagram. We'll drop all that later. But at the same time, like in watching, content from Native Koreans and stuff, like it's not uncommon, at least in the content I watch. I can't speak to like if you live in Seoul, like what young people in Seoul say, but like it's very common that they've never or rarely seen a foreigner to begin with, but especially a Black foreigner. So, but at the same time, if you're in these spaces, you'll notice that like Korea's like, I don't know what you call it, fashion industry, advertising industry, both and. I don't know what the proper terminology is, like has like really diversified, and like they're doing really cool things in my opinion, as far as like, I'm not a fashion person, but like, like their advertisements and like their photo shoots, like I think like they're doing really cool stuff. And so I wondered like what that experience has been like being in that industry at this particular moment in the zeitgeist, I don't know. and like what the reception's been like that you've seen. Not even necessarily to yourself. It could be just in general, or you personally, either way.
I think Korea is really good at packaging.
Maybe that's what I'm picking up. Yeah, like they do really, yeah.
Yeah, and I'd say, like to be honest, this has nothing bad about Korea. Just I think they're really good at packaging or making it seem that they're very open to foreigners, because they do want foreigners here. I think mostly as tourists, So they're like, yeah, we love that you guys love our culture. Look, we have foreigners here. We want foreigners to come to our country. And then, so that's the government aspect. But brand wise, I feel like a lot of them do want to reach a global audience. And so they're very cognizant of the fact that they have to show diverse models, right? Because they're not just targeting the Korean population.
Ah, yes. Mm-hmm.
So because of that, I feel like I've been able, me and other, people of color, models of color here, have been able to experience working with these brands. And so that's been interesting. But on set, there have been very evident makeup artists who are like, yeah, I don't really know what I'm gonna do with this, but I'm gonna make it work. Like I watched some YouTube videos and like we're gonna make it happen. And I'm like, all right.
I mean, shout out to being resourceful, I guess.
Yeah. Especially when my hair was, in my fro. They definitely like, we don't really know what we're gonna do with this, but I saw some videos and we're gonna try this out. And I'm like, okay, go for it. Like as a model, I don't really have any say over that. I kind of just have to go with whatever they plan. So some shoots have definitely been interesting, to say the least. And then others, I was blown away. Like the makeup was on point, the hair was on point. They even like did my edges. I was like, ooh.
Both of us hit the ooh.
Yeah. I was like, I like you. Like, can we be friends? Yeah. But it's only a handful, right? Where I've had this amazing experience, and everything else was kind of like they were just kind of like figuring it out as we went, which isn't a bad thing. The people who were really hard to work with were the ones who complained, oh my God, I have no idea what to do with her hair. Her hair is so different. Oh my God, I wasn't told. Like, what do I do? Like, those are the experiences that I would say didn't happen a lot for me, but they were present. And so if that does happen to you as well as a model of color, or even, Indian models, Hispanic models, like, don't fret. It's not your fault. Just, it is what it is. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And frankly, unfortunately, as you're speaking, like that's something I've experienced here in America, like not probably nearly as often, but like you go to hair salons and they're like, well, I don't know what to tell you. Like we didn't learn this in cosmetology school. So it's that sounds familiar. Maybe not as common here, but still not unfamiliar, unfortunately.
Right.
But I'm glad it's getting better. And yeah, I've seen I could understand like it's a packaging trying to appease me, the foreigner who's like, ooh, this looks so nice. I'm really excited about that. But I really hope it does start to spread to also behind the scenes more and more. And as the culture comes up, I would say.
I think it's definitely more people of color are, on the screen, on TV, thankfully. And, people like Jenny, who's half Black, half Korean. So
yes. Mm-hmm.
You can't say you didn't see or you can't see.
Right.
So bless. Bless.
Yeah, that's something that's why I follow her, like, as a mixed person myself in America. Like, I'm always curious. I'm like, I know Black people exist in these countries, like not obviously expats like yourself, but also like I'm mixed. I know this experience exists, and I'm always so curious, like, what has their life been like? What has their experience been like? And so it's really cool. There's like a couple I follow, Ginny, and I can't think of his name.
Women.
Yes. Oh, yes. One of the biggest ones. Yes. Yeah, it's that you can follow, but I'm hoping their prevalence like gives way to more and more being more prevalent. I think it's really cool. You talked earlier about how partly why you wanted to go back so badly after doing your exchange program was that, you saw a lot of growth in yourself. So I'm wondering, what is the biggest lesson you've learned living in Korea thus far?
Ooh. The biggest lesson, oh my God, it sounds so cliche, but really believing in yourself. It sounds so cliche, guys, but not even just in this industry, right? Just the fact that you picked yourself up and moved to a place that's completely different from you, different language, different culture. At the end of the day, yes, you have you can make really good friends here, really good ties, but you really only have yourself. Like, it can be really lonely. It can be scary. And there are times where I'm like, what in the world? What am I doing here? Even this morning, I was like, what? Like, I'm here, what? But having the faith that you want something more than your comfort, at the moment, momentarily comfort, it really does push you, really does drive you. And you learn a lot about yourself, like the things that you've gone through, the triumphs that you have, the trials.
Believe in yourself. I mean, I think the problem is it's cliche because we say it so much, but we have to say it so much because none of us are doing it very well. So I think it's really cool to like throw yourself into an experience and to really like to have that impressed upon you like deeply.
Yeah, every day. Like, and I encourage people, even my friends back home who are like, yeah, my life is kind of like the same, etc. I'm like, okay, well then this weekend do one thing that kind of scares you and just go for it, because you'd be surprised. Once you do it, you're like, I did that. I can do that.
I've been trying that.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing this year. I'm like, this is the year of me saying yes. Just say it, which also sounds cliche, but It's actually done a lot for my confidence.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's that piece right there. Like I also, like before I went to China, I told myself, oh my God, it's so hard. Like, how am I going to do it, etc. And then I did it. And I was like, yeah, it was hard, but I did it anyways. And it became easier, like, like you learn, you grow. And it really is the piece I feel like we all need, especially after the pandemic and everything. Like a lot of self-discovery, a lot of realizing that we kind of all are in the same boat. We don't know what the heck we're doing in this world. We're kind of just making it up as we go. So the sooner you realize that, a lot of other things become less scary, I feel like. Yeah. And more empathy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, more empathy.
I love it. Absolutely. And I think that's a great note to leave off on. But before we do, is there anything you wish I'd asked or hoped we'd had more time for?
Oh, no, I don't know. I just love it. It flew by. This time flew by so quickly. I loved
it. Really did.
Talk about. Hopefully next time we can get back together and I'll have more juicy details for you.
Ooh, I would love it. I would absolutely love for you to come back on and chit chat. Maybe we'll like do a specific themed one. Who knows? Who's to say?
Yeah, that was, go ahead, girl.
Look, I'm already playing. I'm like, okay, we could make something happen. Well, thank you so much for joining me. Go ahead and tell the good people where they can find you, plug everything to include your podcast.
Yay! Well, thank you for having me. Culture by Culture A. It's been so fun chatting with you guys. So happy that you guys got to know a little bit about me. I do want to hear more about you guys, so please like, subscribe, leave comments. Let us know what you want us to talk about in the future. You can find me on Instagram, X, in Twitter, now X, and YouTube by by Renee Dreams Art, RENEE Dreams, DREAMSART. And my podcast called Chingu Corner on Spotify and hopefully soon on YouTube as well. So please look out for that. Mwah.
Fun. To be clear, Chingu means friend. So it's a cute little friendly time.
Yeah.
And thank you all so much for listening so much. I would like to know, is there any place in Asia where you've always wanted to visit? I will put the question little sticker thingamajig on Spotify, but you can also let me know on socials at Culture X Podcast on Twitter, X, whatever we're calling it, or IG. And until next time, keep it chill and keep it nerdy. Bye.
Bye.